So today's video is probably one of the most anticipated videos for my channel. Today's video is going to be my top 15 coasters in the state of Missouri. I've ridden pretty much every non-kiddie coaster in the state of Missouri. The only one I have not ridden is Worlds of Fun's Boomerang because it was closed when I visited, and that would definitely not have made the list anyway, so I don't think that's a huge worry. So yeah, this is a big video because obviously it's my home state, and now I've finally been to Worlds of Fun, so I've ridden every major coaster in the state. So yeah, this video is I'm gonna rank my top 15 in the state, which is pretty much a couple aren't gonna make it obviously, but pretty much most of the major coasters in the state are gonna make this list because there's not that many. So yeah, let's get started, and I hope you enjoy this video. The number 15 coaster on this list is Thunderation at Silver City. This is definitely one of the better family coasters in Missouri, and it's actually probably the best family coaster in Missouri. Well, depends what you consider a family coaster. Best smaller scale family coaster in Missouri. And definitely one of the better ones I've ridden overall. The main reason that this isn't higher on the list, it is a pretty rough ride, which is one thing I did not enjoy about it. But overall, I think it's definitely one of the best, definitely my favorite mine train. It's definitely one of the better mine trains out there. So this is one I don't think people should sleep on when they go to Silver City. It's definitely worth riding, and I think it's definitely a great ride for the families. And number 14 is a ride that I think most people didn't even expect to make this list, and that's Ninja at Six Flags St. Louis. This is one of the most hated roller coasters of all time, and honestly, I don't really see where the hate's coming from. I think it's a pretty decent coaster, and it's good enough to make my top 15 in the state. There is some really fun moments on this, such as the first drop gives great airtime if you're in the back row. Most of the inversions are fun. The corkscrews are great. The only inversion I don't like is the Sidewinder, because it is very rough, and that's honestly the only part of the ride I don't like. So overall, it's just a really fun ride, and this is something I really enjoy riding every time I go to Six Flags St. Louis. Even though most people just will ride this once in their entire life just to get the credit and never do it again, I honestly think it's a decent ride, and I don't really understand why people hate it so much. So yeah, I definitely, if you've ridden this before and didn't really like it, I definitely recommend giving it a second chance. And if you've never ridden it before, don't be scared to ride it when you come to Six Flags St. Louis. Number 13 on the list is Timberwolf at Worlds of Fun. Even though I normally like rough wooden coasters as long as it has redeeming qualities and it's not like jackhammering or anything, this is a coaster that actually my favorite thing about it was that it was very smooth, and for its age, it's probably one of the smoothest wooden coasters out there for one built in the 1980s. And that was one of the reasons this ride, if it was a bit more rougher, it probably would not have made this list, even though I do enjoy rough wooden coasters. I just think it needed to be smooth because it doesn't. There is a couple really good moments of airtime on this ride, but overall, I just don't think it had enough to it that if it would have been rough, it would not have been a good coaster. So that's why I think it was a really good idea by Worlds of Fun to retrack this ride. So yeah, all the track is not all the track. There's one or two bits that are old and rough, but most of the track is very new in the last few years. So therefore, it's very smooth. And most of this ride didn't really do much, which is why it's all the way down at number 13. But there was a few great moments that had strong airtime that I really liked. Number 12 on the list is Powder Keg at Silver City. While this ride is a coaster that I do very enjoy, I do think it is a bit overrated. Basically, my favorite parts about this ride is it has a very good launch, and the first like two airtime hills give pretty good airtime. But after that, this ride doesn't really, well, actually, there is one turn that has very good laterals. But besides those things, this ride doesn't really do that much for me. And I really think the second half kind of sucks. And the lift hill is like, it really slows down the ride, and there's not really much good after the lift hill. But also, if it didn't have the lift hill, it would be too short of a coaster, so that's why I am fine with it. Overall, this is a decent ride that's great to have at Silver City, especially with its unique history, but it's not really anything special, honestly. At number 11 on the list is another coaster that I do think is overrated, and that's American Thunder at Six Flags St. Louis. This is not all a bad coaster. It's actually a coaster I really enjoy, but I just think some people say it's like their number one or number two coaster in the park, which I definitely disagree with. But this is still a really fun ride. It has a lot of great floater airtime. My main problem with it is the airtime is all weak airtime. It's just not strong enough for me to rank it really any higher. But it does have a lot of airtime, which is one good thing about it. And it's very smooth, which is another good thing. And Yeah, this is one I always enjoy riding because it's at my home park. I come there a lot. It's one of my most ridden coasters of anything. For a while, it was probably my number one. I don't. I stopped keeping track, so I don't know if it still is. I think it might have been passed because I didn't ride it enough towards the end of last year. Uh, so yeah, at number 10 is where we get to the really tough decisions. The coasters I have ranked number 4 through number 10 are all very close in my opinion, and there isn't that much separating how good any of them are. So honestly, these could be flipped around a lot. So these next few spots are all coasters I really enjoy, but they just aren't in the top 3 in the state. But they definitely are better than the ones I've previously said. So the one I ended up deciding was the least favorite. My least favorite of these coasters is Patriot at Worlds of Fun. This is a really, it's definitely an underrated being invert. Not my least favorite I've ridden, but it is my least favorite of the two in Missouri. Um, I didn't think a lot of people say this coaster is forestless, which I totally disagree with. I wouldn't call it intense like Batman the Ride, but it certainly wasn't forestless either. It had some really good elements. The inversions were very fun. It was a bit rough, not as rough as a certain other B&M invert in Cincinnati that I've ridden, but it's also not as smooth as others such as Batman. So I don't think the roughness really hurt the ride too much for me. It wasn't a huge deal, but the thing that would make it move up on this list was if it was a bit more intense. It wasn't forceless either though. The number 9 coaster on this list is definitely my most controversial placement. It's a coaster I do think is overrated a bit. It's still a ride I really enjoy, and that is Time Travel at Silver City. A lot of people put this as a top like 30 or 40 coaster in the world, and while I do really enjoy it, that's just simply not true for me. Um, I do really enjoy the first drop. It's definitely one of the best first drops on any coaster I've ridden. It's just crazy. Like I don't really know if you haven't ridden it. I can't really describe what it's like to you. It's kind of hard. My main complaints is that this ride is not very intense. Besides the first drop, the first drop is intense, but the rest just feels a little bit more like a family coaster. The inversions are pretty fun. The spinning doesn't really do that much, honestly. That it could if it spun a little faster, I might enjoy it more. And also, another thing I hate about it is how it comes to a complete stop at the mid course, which I feel like they should have put a show there or like some sort of theming, or just had it roll right straight through that launch and keep going on with the ride to not mess with the pacing. At number 8 on this list is another coaster in my home park. That's Batman the Ride at Six Flags St. Louis. Um, this is one of the most intense coasters in Missouri. It's definitely in the top 2 or 3 most intense, which that's probably my favorite thing about it, and mainly the reason that this ranks so high is it's a very intense coaster, which the inversions are fun. It's very intense. There's not really that much for me to say about this one because I mean, who hasn't ridden a Batman clone? Literally everyone, enthusiast or even GP. Most GP have probably even ridden one. So these are so common rides. It's a really fun ride. I do enjoy riding it. Uh, Basically, my favorite thing about it is the forces and the intensity. At number 7 on this list, I have another coaster in my home park, Screamin Eagle at Six Flags St. Louis. This is definitely one of the most underrated coasters I've ridden. No one ever talks about it, but it's still an amazing ride, and it's such a classic. Just like the last coaster on the ride, Batman the Ride, Screamin Eagle, they're both great classics at my home park at Six Flags St. Louis. Uh, Screamin Eagle, this coaster has a lot of airtime. It's mostly floater airtime, but it's still good floater. But there is one moment of ejector towards the end of the ride that is honestly an amazing moment. Definitely the best moment on the ride. This also is a bit, for a coaster built in 1976, it's incredibly smooth. There's hardly any rough patches. It's just an all-around great ride, and it's something one I really enjoy. I'm glad it's at my home park. It's a special coaster for me just because of the history and being in my home park. I've ridden it tons of times. It's just a great ride. I can't say enough good things about it. It's definitely if you haven't been to Six Flags St. Louis, this is definitely one of the ones you're gonna want to ride when you're there. And yeah, it's just all around a great ride, and it's such a classic. At number 6 on this list is my favorite B&M in Missouri, Wildfire at Silver City. This is a model that I'd really like to see B&M bring back, the sit-down model, which, while they technically haven't gotten rid of it, it's basically extinct because of the floorless coaster coming. And it's a very forceful ride. It might not be as forceful as Batman, but it's up there. It does have very good airtime over the first drop in the back row. It's also a great night ride. There's a lot of coasters on this list that are great night rides. I didn't say that during that, but This is definitely one that I've ridden this a lot at night, so I've gotten a good experience with that. It's smooth. It's probably because it's an older B&M. I find the older B&Ms are actually smoother than the new ones. That's something I really enjoy. I just think it's all around a great ride, and it's one of my top couple. It's my top two coasters at Silver Dollar City. Starting off the top five coasters in Missouri for me is Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast at Six Flags St. Louis. This is all around a great ride. It's very intense. Really, my only complaints about it is it is kind of short, but that's kind of understandable with the nature of the coaster. And it also is some days more than other days kind of rough, but the roughness doesn't really bother me that much. I've gotten used to it. Basically, my favorite things about this ride is the intensity of it, and also how the launch is good, and just something. There's something I really like about this ride. It's just all around really fun, and it's one of my top few coasters at my home park. My number four coaster on this list is Mamba at Worlds of Fun, which is the only true hyper coaster in Missouri. Mr. Freeze is technically over 200 feet tall, but it's not really a hyper, so I'm not. I'm gonna say Mamba is the only one. Um, this coaster is one on. This is one of those coasters where it's like it's a tale of two halves, pretty much. The first half is very great. The first drop I really enjoy. It's not an amazing first drop, but it's a good one. First hill, and there's some other parts in the first half that give very good airtime. That it's very strong, and I really enjoyed that. And also, the helix on this ride is extremely intense. I didn't gray out on it, but I like really never gray out, so uh, that's expected from me. It's one of the most intense elements I've ridden. I haven't been on a lot of super intense coasters though, so it doesn't have that much competition. And yeah, so I really enjoy the first half of this coaster, and it would probably be higher if it was all like as good as the first half. But basically, after that, there's a mid-course brake run that it hits very hard, and you go very slow, and basically makes all those bunny hills at the end have no airtime, which kind of sucks. It's going really slow, and you just don't get any. So honestly, if I could get a trimless ride on this, I think it would be even high. Well, maybe not for in Missouri, but from our overall rankings, it would be higher. Yeah, this kind of end of those coasters that I said were all very close to each other in how good they are. But top three in the state really stand out to me, and that's what I'm going to be getting into next. One thing I really like about my top three coasters in the state is that it's one coaster from each of the three major parks in the state, which shows that every park has a good stand-up coaster for it. I mean, really, they could use some of them, especially two of the parks could use a better stand-up coaster, but I do like that each has one a signature coaster that is in my top three for the state. And so starting this off, my number three coaster in the state is my favorite coaster at Worlds of Fun, which is Prowler. This is a great GCI. Out of the three I've ridden, it's the only one I like more than it is Missy Timbers. This coaster, it's just full of airtime. It's got a lot of airtime. It's overall pretty smooth, I'd say. It's aggressive. It's definitely very aggressive, especially for a GCI. Yeah, it's just overall it's a great ride. It's got a lot of airtime. I really enjoyed it. My favorite coaster in the park, and basically what I want to do for this coaster is I would like to get to Worlds of Fun again sometime when it's night, like maybe Haunt or Winterfest, so I can try to get some night rides on this to see if that could improve my opinion on it even more. My number two coaster in Missouri is my favorite coaster at my home park. That's the Boston Six Flags St. Louis. This is just all around an amazing coaster. Definitely one of the most underrated I've been on. Prowler is also underrated. I forgot to mention that during it, but this is one of the most underrated I've been on, and this is all around a great ride. It's like one of the last great CCIs, honestly. It's just a massive wooden coaster. Has some great airtime moments in it. Like there's one right before the first turnaround that gives good ejector, and there's one towards the end that also gives really good airtime. But there are also a couple other shorter moments of airtime on this ride, and all around it just does a lot of great stuff. It's a very well-rounded coaster. It's an amazing night ride. Like you haven't ridden Boston if you haven't ridden it at night, pretty much. And yeah, this is one I really enjoy. It's a really special coaster for me as being the best coaster at my home park. I'm obviously really gonna enjoy it, and it's well suited for what types of things I like in a coaster. Um, it's definitely best if the trims are off, but it's still a great ride when they're on. Yeah, it's just a really long ride. It's not as long as it used to be, but it's still pretty long. It goes through a lot of different sections, and yeah, overall, this is just it's my favorite coaster at my home park. And now we're down to just my favorite coaster in the entire state of Missouri, and that's Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City. This coaster is definitely deserving as a title, as it's just an all-around great ride. It's the only RMC in the state. So it's got loads of airtime and its ejector. I don't really like the restraints are good for getting room to get airtime, but they are very uncomfortable. So that's the one bad thing about them. But they do give you some good airtime. All around, it's a great wooden coaster. All my top three in this state are all wooden coasters. It's got a lot of ejector airtime. Got a lot. It's just all around. It's a great ride. I do enjoy the inversions. I enjoy the airtime. It's something I really like to marathon when I go to Silver Dollar City. It's an amazing night ride. Most of my rides on this have actually been at night. I've ridden it more in the daytime this year, but in the past I've been riding it at night mostly. All around Square Ride, the inversions, it has a great ending with two back-to-back inversions, and all around, this is my favorite coaster in Missouri. It's hands down the best. It's just such an amazing ride, and it's in my top three overall actually. So yeah, that's my top 15 in Missouri. So thanks for watching, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, leave it a like. If you didn't like the video, leave a dislike. If you want to see more of my videos, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to let me know your thoughts on the video, leave a comment down below. If you want to tell me your favorite coasters in Missouri, your top 15 in the state, you can let me know that. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone.